President Trump's first option is always diplomacy, but as he has shown, he is willing to use the lethal force of the United States military if necessary. So it's always, the president is always the final decision maker around here. And I've seen a lot of sensationalist reporting over the past day that is just completely untrue.
U.S. President Donald Trump pushed back hard against reports claiming a top U.S. general warned against war with Iran, calling them fake and political. In a lengthy Truth Social post, Trump said media stories about internal resistance to military action are completely false. He rejected claims that General Gen Caine, the Joint Chiefs of Staff chairman, privately cautioned against the prospect of strikes on Tehran. According to a report by the Washington Post, General Gen Caine raised alarms in a White House meeting last week. Caine reportedly warned Trump directly that shortfalls in critical munitions could significantly increase operational risks. 2 critical air defense systems against Iranian-launched ballistic missiles, THAAD interceptors and Patriot missiles, have been heavily used in recent Middle East operations, straining U.S. stockpiles. Patriot systems are also in high demand in Ukraine, where they are vital for defending against ongoing Russian missile attacks. U.S. weapon stockpiles have been strained by ongoing support for Israel and Ukraine. That sustained military assistance has reduced available precision munitions and air defense systems. Caine reportedly told senior officials that any large-scale operation against Iran would face serious hurdles. He also flagged the inherent complexity of striking fortified and dispersed Iranian targets. Privately, the general raised concerns about the potential for American casualties, as per the report. In response, the president insisted that General Caine had not opposed action and would execute orders if directed. Trump said the general, like others, prefers peace but stands ready to win decisively if conflict begins. He emphasized that speculation about limited strikes has been exaggerated and inaccurately portrayed.
Not only America is the safest country in the world, but remains the strongest country in the world.
Does he consider Iran a threat that remains abroad?
Well, look, Iran chants death to America, so you tell me if that's a threat. Elena.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask about if the president is expected to address the DHS shutdown during his speech today, and also if you could clarify what happened on Sunday with the TSA pre-check lines being closed and then having that decision reversed.
Sure. He will call on Democrats in Congress to reopen the Department of Homeland Security. It's despicable that they have shut down this agency that is responsible not just for the deportations of murderers and criminals whom none of you, including Democrat politicians, would want living in your communities, but also FEMA, who is on the ground in the Northeast right now, restoring electricity and power for families who have been impacted by the blizzard. You look at your United States Coast Guard, men and women who are not being paid because of Democrat politicians who have shut down the Department of Homeland Security, the United States Secret Service, which of course is essential to protecting the President of the United States. They just did honorably this past weekend when an armed crazy person intruded at the President's personal property in Florida. These are great men and women who are working around the clock to keep our homeland safe, and it's terrible that Democrat politicians have shut them down. And it is impacting TSA as well, which is why they have been updating the guidance. As for internal deliberations on that, I would defer you to the Department of Homeland Security directly. But of course, there is going to be an impact at airports when you shut down the department that's responsible for funding TSA agents and providing them their paychecks. And it's an unfortunate consequence, and it's completely avoidable if Democrats do the right thing and get these great men and women paid.
Ron, you mentioned Operation Midnight Hammer, the president touting the success of the military. One of the things that the president said after that was that Iran's nuclear sites would be obliterated. We heard from Steve Witkoff just a few days ago also saying that Iran was maybe just a week away from getting access to bomb-making material. How can you square those two statements? What exactly happened here? Were the strikes just not as effective, or were they just rebuild what the administration had hoped?
No, the president's initial statement, and the president reiterated that statement last night on Truth Social, that Operation Midnight Hammer was an overwhelmingly successful mission that did, in fact, obliterate Iran's nuclear facilities. That is not just verified by the President of the United States, but also the International Atomic Energy Commission as well. That does not mean that Iran may never try again to establish a nuclear program that could directly threaten the United States and our allies abroad, and that's what the president wants to ensure can never happen again. And just one more note, but with respect to Iran, before I run into my morning meeting, President Trump's first option is always diplomacy, but as he has shown, he is willing to use the lethal force of the United States military if necessary. So it's always, the president is always the final decision maker around here. And I've seen a lot of sensationalist reporting over the past day that is just completely untrue. And anyone speculating to the media, hiding behind an anonymous source, pretending to know what President Trump is thinking or a decision he will make with respect to action against Iran has no idea what they're talking about.
The remarks come amid rising tensions between Washington and Tehran over Iran's nuclear ambitions. Trump underlined that any final decision on military action rests solely with him as commander-in-chief. While asserting authority, the US president repeated that he would prefer a negotiated nuclear deal over war. He added that the Iranian people are great and wonderful, but blamed leadership for the crisis. Officials from both countries are now preparing for another round of indirect talks in Geneva on February 26th. The discussions focus on curbing Iran's nuclear program in exchange for possible sanctions relief. Meanwhile, the US military has expanded its regional presence with carriers, jets, and refueling tankers. The buildup signals readiness even as diplomatic channels remain open between Washington and Tehran.
As you know, Iran is a hot spot right now, and they're meeting, and they have a good relationship with the representatives of Iran, and, you know, good talks are being had. It's proven to be, over the years, not easy to make a meaningful deal with Iran. We have to make a meaningful deal. Otherwise, bad things happen. But we have to make a meaningful deal. But they have a great relationship with the representatives of Iran. It costs you 100 times what it costs to make peace. We have a man at the end. And we do have some work to do with Iran. They can't have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. You can't have peace in the Middle East if they have a nuclear weapon. And they can't have a nuclear weapon. And they've been told that very strongly. And now is the time for Iran to join us on a path that will complete what we're doing. And if they join us, that'll be great. If they don't join us, that'll be great too. But it'll be a very different path. They cannot continue to threaten the stability of the entire region, and they must make a deal. Or if that doesn't happen, I maybe can understand. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But bad things will happen if it doesn't. Nice to have you both. Very proud of you. The Prime Minister of the war in Gaza is over. It's over. There are little flames. Hamas has been, I think they're going to give up their weapons, which is what they promised. If they don't, it'll be, they'll be harshly met, very harshly met. They don't want that. They did that, and I just thought it was very nice. And it makes me work harder. We're going to have to work harder. We're going to have to make this building much more important. They built it. It went into Iran, and it totally decimated the nuclear potential. And when it decimated that, all of a sudden we had peace in the Middle East, because there was a black cloud hanging over the Middle East, and if that wasn't done, that cloud would have been there. And countries like Saudi Arabia, countries like Qatar, nobody could have signed. You would have had that threat. You couldn't have had peace in the Middle East. So now we may have to take it a step further, or we may not. Maybe we're going to make a deal. You're going to be finding out over the next probably 10 days. Most of them very immediately. A few that we really don't want. But for that, they brought the last one home a week ago. But together we're committed to achieving a Gaza that is properly governed throughout. The whole area is going to be, so many countries that have really nothing to do with the Middle East, but they're maybe somewhat close by. They're all involved. They want to go in and fight. They tell me all the time, we'd like to send soldiers to fight if it's necessary. And I don't think it's going to be necessary. We have two countries that want to go in and do a number on Hamas. I said, I really don't think I hope it's not going to be necessary, because they made a promise, and they promised me get rid of their weapons. Looks like they're going to be doing that, but we'll have to find out. But it's no longer a hotbed of radicalism and terror.